Okay, here we go. My name is Adam Condit. This is the Blue Ox Running Podcast. We have it on YouTube and Instagram as well on video. But if you're listening to this or watching this, I am super excited for this next round of podcasts, which is essentially going to be me going through solid marathon training. Okay, we're going to take a 10-part series to break down what it means to do solid full marathon training. You could probably adapt some of this, obviously, for like half marathon and things like that. But let me just kind of give you an overview of who I am, why I'm excited about bringing this kind of new mini series throughout the spring to you, and what this is going to look like. So our typical podcasts are usually like kind of going over like an interview style with people's stories and kind of catching up with our personal life and whatnot. And that's helpful and good and necessary, I think, and has a place in the running community. But I've decided to take it to another kind of adjacent move to actually dive into something that I'm usually pretty uncomfortable with, which is to talk about myself and my own training. I typically keep that pretty private. I don't even share almost anything on Strava. I like to keep my personal running personal. And once in a while, I'll share like, a race or a big adventure that I did and like to share my photos and things like that. But when it comes to the day in, day out grind of training, that is kind of my my alone place where I like to be alone for the most part. I like to figure out what training is helpful for me. And I've been doing it for, 20 to 25 years now. And I'm excited to kind of share it with you in a way that's hopefully approachable. I'm not a professional runner. I have a full-time job at a business here. My wife and I own the running store here. Full-time, a lot of work that goes into owning our own business. We have 3 kids. Running is not easy. It's not fit into my schedule perfectly all the time. And I know that a lot of you are out there kind of in the same place. So with all of that to say, this is kind of geared towards a little bit more competitive, intermediate to advanced level marathoning. I'm not going to put times on that because obviously you can be advanced and intermediate in your own right, no matter what time you're running. But, people kind of getting into marathons that just want to complete the distance and want to say that they've done it either once or a few times to complete the distance is probably not going to be the target audience of this 10-part series. It's going to be a little bit more geared towards people that want to compete at the distance, people that want to better themselves, lower their times, have a personal best. Some people hire a coach. We do coaching here at Blue Ox Running as well. But this 10-part series is going to be hopefully helpful and something that I want to leave behind when it's all said and done as something you can go back to, re-explore and learn from my mistakes, learn from my victories, learn from my bad races, good races, and everything in between. So with all of that, let me just tell you who I am and why I think I might have a little bit of credibility when it comes to giving advice on the marathon. So I'm 42 years old. I've been running marathons since, I had to write some of this down and think back. I've done 9 marathons. I've done probably that many or even more ultra marathons, but I just kind of wrote down my history here. And for those of you on video, you can look at the screen, but I'll kind of run down. My first marathon, I was 25 years old. It was 2008 Philadelphia Marathon. I ran 2:28 as my first one. Then I ran 2:32 the next year in the same race, Philadelphia. The next year I ran 2:31. The following year was my best year of marathoning, 2011. I ran 2:27 on a somewhat rolling, kind of hilly rolling course at Twin Cities. And then 4 weeks later, I ran 2:29 at Marine Corps Marathon again, took 5th place. And then the next year, I tried to really hammer home. I thought I was going to break 2:25, and I ended up running 2:30, slowing down to 2:30 at the Milwaukee Lakefront Marathon, I believe, in 2012. So all that to say, I put 6 marathons in 5 years, kind of early in my career, getting out of college. And then I took a long break. I got into ultra marathons from 2012, 2013. We had more kids. I ended up running Western States. So I was doing the ultra thing for a while. So then it comes down to starting our business, moving back to Wisconsin, a lot of life change. 6 years later, in 2018, I got ready for actually my first spring marathon, which was Eau Claire Marathon. Ran 234. The next year, I ran 240. And then the following year, with the COVID weirdness, there was kind of a year and a half in there, I ended up running 238 as my last road marathon in 2021. So I've kind of run anywhere from 228 into the 230s, and 240, I guess, is my worst marathon, or my slowest one so far. Some people don't know all the years that I've run Eau Claire. I took second one year, and then I won 2 other years, and I've really not ever run with anybody during that race. So those kind of felt like time trials. I was definitely pushing my hardest and trying to do my best, but I'm excited this year to go back to, or actually not go back to, but to run for the first time, Grandma's Marathon. So Eau Claire is a great race. I'll probably take part in some way, whether it's pacing or maybe I'll run the half marathon there as a tune-up. Love Eau Claire. It's kind of a big work week for us, to be honest. It's very, very, very busy when it comes to us in the store and sales and working the day before the race and all that. So I'm excited to have an A race be Grandma's this coming June. And as I kind of organize my thoughts and organize some topics to talk about, I'm going to be popping on here about every other week. I'm going to keep these podcasts a little bit shorter, more like 10 to 15 minutes. And I really want to kind of not have it be about my progress and not necessarily have it be about my splits or even my mileage. I might not even share exact numbers of what I'm doing, but I want to give you an overall story arc of why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I break up, a 24-week training block. There's a lot of weeks there, and we need to kind of know exactly what the purpose is for each week. I've learned through trial and error. I learned in good cycles and bad cycles, good races and bad races, and I want to talk through a couple things of kind of basically my best advice with how to run a good competitive marathon. That's the whole purpose of this. So that's going to be how I kind of break up these episodes. I'm going to basically go, I've written some notes down here so I don't get too sidetracked. You can tell I am kind of a rambler. I could make these an hour every time by just rambling, but I don't want to ramble. I want to focus on the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps of this podcast, and this series is going to be giving you an update and a deep dive in my plan and how my progress is doing, and then something personal. Okay, so the plan, the progress, and personal, because we all know at the end of the day, we're just runners that are people outdoors or indoors moving around. So we still have to take care of the person. And when it comes to organizing our training, we can't forget that we're people with stress and jobs and life and kids and responsibility and our whole life. Very few of you out there, I'm not one of these, but very few of you out there have the privilege to be a professional runner. But for the rest of us, we need to be able to organize and do things smarter, sometimes not harder. So with all of that, the first thing I wanted to share, just as a high level organization with how I approach 24 weeks, is this. I look at 24 weeks and I think, hey, if I have some base fitness, I'm gonna basically like err on the side of a little bit more base and build that base foundation to my fitness in the first half of my training. So I don't want to be in hard marathon training for 24 weeks. You're going to burn out. You're not going to be doing the right things at the right time. And this is kind of, if I just really think about it, this is how I approach 18 to 24 weeks. Okay, for those of you on the video, you can look at the screen. I'm just going to talk through my first 6 to 12 weeks. 6 to 12 weeks is really base building. And that doesn't mean I'm just running slow every single day. I'm going to get into what that actually means. A base phase, I've got 5 weeks of a speed phase, I've got 5 weeks of a marathon specific phase, and I've got a 2 weeks of taper phase. Okay, so 6 to 12 weeks of base phase, 5 weeks of speed phase, 5 weeks of marathon specific phase, and 2 weeks of taper phase. Now, some people might kind of look at this as backwards, where I have my speed and my marathon phases. Some people always are doing faster workouts and faster repeats as they get closer to race day. And I would say that is appropriate if you're getting ready for a very fast race, like the 5K or the 3K or the mile, or you're in kind of like a track type of season. You're going to maybe have base phase and then your longer intervals and then your shorter intervals, and then you're going to peak with your shorter intervals because you're in track, your skill set and your shorter intervals are very close to the skill set that's needed for your race. But for our marathon, the skill set that's needed for our marathon is very close to those hard, longer marathon workouts, and I'm actually going to build my speed a little bit earlier. Okay, so some people call this the upside down pyramid because you do speed first and then you go down to marathon specific later. And I just want to remind us that speed can look a lot of different ways. We're going to get into how that might look later in these episodes. But again, I am kind of starting with a good base of the pyramid. My first 6 to 12 weeks are all base phase of getting solid aerobic improvements and getting that mileage built up to be durable. Okay, so where am I at in that right now? Right now, I'm basically finished. I think I finished week 6. So I have 6 more weeks of base phase. We have 18 weeks until the marathon at Grandma's. And so I'm excited. Time is actually kind of going fast. Whenever you think of all of this time that you have, once in a while you go, oh my gosh, I'm halfway through base phase. And when you break it up like this, 24 weeks turns into blocks of 5 weeks or 2 weeks or 6 weeks here and there. And so then you can actually start to see if I'm skipping 2 or 3 weeks or it kind of falls apart, I can't really afford that much in between time, because it's not like I have 24 weeks. I have 6 weeks of this base phase. And then I have 6 weeks, a little bit more of another part of my base phase that I'll sprinkle in a few workouts. So that's just very, very high level how I break it up. I want the most mileage in a base phase. My speed and marathon phases will last anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how much time I have. And let me just let you know kind of where I'm coming from, because a lot of people that are getting into the sport of marathoning do not have the same base or the amount of miles that someone else might have. And I think the best thing that you can do to be a successful marathoner and long distance runner really is to put those not just like weeks of training in consistently, but you got to stack the months on top of months and then the years on top of years. So I was 25 years old by the time I started my first marathon, and I was running 80 to 90 miles a week before that, just training for 10Ks and half marathons. So not all 25-year-olds are the same. It's hard for me to just prescribe you to start your first marathon at 25 if you want to do that. There are some people that have never run before and they're 25. So you can't just say 25 is the best year to start your marathon training. I know people that run a marathon at 18. I honestly don't really recommend that. I think you have your whole life to run these long distances. And I was at a place where I was very durable. I could take on a lot of training, and I knew that I wanted to do it competitively. So with all those things being said, I stepped up to the half marathon for a couple of years. I ran the half marathon. My first one, I ran 1:11. I got it down to 1:09. And then I felt like I could put together a decent marathon. And by the way, in those first 6 years of marathoning, I ran one marathon in the fall every year and then focused on more of a speed season in the spring. So when I hear about people doing 10 marathons a year and 5 marathons a year and all this, I just know that that's definitely doable. I could go out and finish those distances, but that's not really how the professionals or the competitive elites train if they want to get the best out of their best out of their bodies. Okay. So the marathon is a perfect kind of example of kind of this balance of speed and endurance. It breaks the body down a lot. It's also on the roads, so it actually breaks my body down more, I would say, than even some of my ultra marathon stuff. Okay, so that's high level. That's how I'm looking at this. I'm going to walk you through some. Some specific workouts in the next couple weeks. But just know we're in base phase right now, and I'm giving myself a lot of grace as I kind of finish this out. Talk personally about what's influencing my training. Personally, I'm really excited for Grandma's Marathon because it'll be my 10th marathon. It's kind of a nice round number. I think it's a very competitive marathon that I want to do well in. It'll be my first marathon as a masters runner. I haven't run the full marathon kind of all out since 2021. I also haven't really been competitive outside of my hometown in a marathon that's very competitive. For me to run in a pack or run around people since 2012. And then I guess the other thing that's really on my mind personally, that's kind of, it's not a negative thing, but it is what it is. That's kind of influencing some of my training, and I'm not getting all the training in I want right now, is my dad's health is coming near the end, and that's just a reality. He has a certain type of diagnosis, and the last couple weeks has been hard to get all the miles in, and that's totally fine, and I need to give myself grace for that. And I wanted to just even mention that because a lot of you, I would say everyone out there that has a plan to execute, and they start to do something like this with a marathon build or some kind of long range plan. You have to be adaptable when things don't go to plan. You have to get back on plan somehow, but also give yourself grace for when things aren't perfect. I used to be very, very perfectionistic with my training, tracking every mile and tenth of a mile and pace and all that. And honestly, I have so much more freedom mentally and physically as I've gotten older to see what I need to be rigid on, what I need to be flexible on. And if anything, right now, just in the middle of this base phase, it's good to have something consistent in my day, consistent in my week that gets me outside, even if it is negative 30 degree wind chills, even if it is the middle of February where everything feels really cold and annoying and terrible. And anyway, that kind of personal part of my life overlaps with running because running is probably my number one stress reliever. And I want to mention that as well. Kind of by the end of our podcast here, I want to get to the plan. I want to get to my progress. And right now my progress is just getting the miles in and trying to get what I kind of planned out. So, and that has to do with what's going on personally. So again, I'm going to wrap this up. This first episode is a little bit more, going to be about 20 minutes because we kind of went over why we're doing this and everything. But every other week, every 2 weeks, I'm going to drop another episode that just kind of lets you know where we're at in the plan, what you can expect from that specific phase, and some of my specific workouts. And then I might even, drop in some of the personal victories or failures that I've been going through with this plan. Because again, it's not just about perfection. It's mostly about progress and being able to do this for the right reasons. So my reasons I'll get into later. I do love running, but I'm at a place now where, I know I'm probably not going to run my fastest time on this, but I still want to give it a go. Still want to work hard and have fun out there. And I think that's all for today. Hey, if you're just kind of tuning in and you have no idea why this format is different than our previous podcast episodes, just stick with me. I'll be going through 10 to 15 minutes every other week. Hopefully by the end, there'll be some kind of coherent, helpful marathon training in there. But I like talking shop. It's hard for me to talk to everyone's experience. So I'm just going to share kind of my own experience, and I hope you can benefit or be encouraged in some way. All right, everybody. Until next time, have a great day out there. Keep getting outside. Remember, winter won't last forever in your personal life or outside in your running life. Have a great one. We'll see you later.
Fast. Or slow.